Congratulations. The first thing you said live was those words. How do you feel?
Okay.
Yeah. Hey,
I hope I've made people hungry. Although, to be honest, it would just be people who see the recording. Anyone who is coming in won't have that satisfying beginning. I don't see your tweet having gone out.
My tweet is out now?
Sorry, just popped. Yep, got it. All right.
Okay.
Do.
I'm sharing this to the firm chat real quick.
Okay. So, what time is it where people are?
It is 10 o'clock, just about. Oh,
so 10 for matcha, 10 for burger. It was 10 for me, I'll say that much. What about you other three?
1:04 a.m. here in Sydney, not certainly Melbourne.
Because of daylight savings?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Rip you.
This is the second time I've heard about daylight savings.
I think WA used to have daylight savings, but we haven't had them in such a long time that I have to kind of like take effort to remember that they exist in the rest of Australia.
Yeah. It's just weird because it's always felt like an American thing.
Or is it because you didn't travel outside of America very much when you were younger?
The first country I've literally been to outside of America was when I went to work in mainland China. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been in Singapore, so I didn't really find out, like, I didn't realize daylight savings was like a real thing and not just something people did in like the 80s or whatever.
The 80s?
Well, I assumed.
Posry said, "Hey, who's that on the bottom right?" Is that Kaiyoki? I was like, "Yeah, that's Kaiyoki."
Hey, Posry.
Posry. I don't know Posry. And like, hey, Burger.
I haven't
what's
been
our viewer count?
Posry in such a long time.
All right. So right now we have about 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
good.
Because I grew up in Singapore, the complete opposite thing of me just like not realizing, and I don't know, because we got a lot of old media there, like just I don't know, like stuff that is just not too expensive to air when I was younger. So I just kind of assumed that like in modern day really wasn't like that anymore once we globalized and stuff.
I just say we look good as a 6-piece. Where's the first time we were a 6-piece on the live stream? Mm-hmm. We look pretty good. It's like we're a box of chocolates or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's begin our stream. To the audience out there, to those who are watching in your Discords or watching here on Twitch, this is the Foxenburger podcast. This is the live stream version of our podcast. We do a little bit more freeform stuff here. We do a little bit more topical stuff. We go beyond than just like interviewing furries from Asia. So though that is actually related to what we're doing today, which is here we have assembled a group of Avengers here to talk about their experiences abroad or even at home as quote unquote as an Asian fur. So we'll explore ideas like what does it mean to be Asian? What is an Asian fur? What do you call home? Integration and things like that. Oh, I think Guangguang's. Oh wow, Guangguang's watching. The guy from Fermit? No, Chahui, the Tea Party, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, okay. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest. With that being said, let's start with Poochie first. So please introduce yourself. Like where are you from, who you are, what's your persona, that kind of stuff.
Hey guys, so I'm Poochie. I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. But I currently live in Melbourne. I may be a bear, but actually, originally I was a border collie, so I consider that to be my main persona. Pleasure to meet you all today. So just to give you a bit of a background about myself, I was actually born in Taiwan, and I moved to Australia when I was 2. And when I was 11, my dad found a new job in mainland China, so we all moved, the entire family moved to Beijing and then stayed there for about the next 8 years or so. So after China, I moved to the UK for university, stayed there for about 6 years in total, but then had to return back to Australia due to visa complications. So yeah, as complicated as my background is, I still consider myself to be Australian.
You've really traveled a lot. Holy crap.
Yeah,
Do you remember
yeah.
even moving when you were 2 years old? Oh my god.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to Kaiyoki.
Oh, me? Hello.
Mm-hmm.
So Shiba Inu. Originally, way back when I was like very underaged, it was a nondescript wolf. And I think like sometime around 2000 and I want to say 13, I made this switch to Shiba Inu, and that was just before the like sheep meme became a thing. So I picked the worst time. There's so much bullying. Oh my god. But nah, yeah, all in good fun. Originally, yep, from Singapore, came to Australia, did my primary school and my high school, A levels, O levels, depending where you are in the world. Then I went back to Singapore for military service, where I did things and worked on an airbase for a little while, and then I came back.
Yeah.
I did my bachelor's of psych, and then I kind of just work in healthcare now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, all right, so we have two Aussies. Well. Would you consider yourself Australian at this point? Just if
I
you can't
will
even.
have to soon, because I
Yeah,
am giving up my Singaporean citizenship very soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, guys.
And if you guys
I've always
know,
considered myself to be.
yeah,
Sorry.
Kaiyoki has actually been a guest on the podcast before. I forget which episode. It might have been 14. Someone can correct me on that.
It's episode. I think it was episode 9, actually.
Oh,
it was
okay.
the one right before Simone.
I remember.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yes,
so it's nice
actually.
to see you again. See your smiling face. Now we see your smiling face here on the live stream.
I think I weigh a bit more now, so there's more smile to go around.
Let's go ahead and go to rating. Another familiar face.
Yeah, so I am Ray, Silver Fox, and fun fact, it's because I got one of those fake foxtails at the underground mall in Taipei, and it was a silver fox tail, and that's kind of how I created my persona. But yeah, I was born and raised in here in the Bay Area in California. But I was going back and forth with Taiwan, and for part of grade school, also spent time in Taiwan.
So is it really early where you are at the moment?
Yeah, so we have a team from around the world today, and in my time zone, it is 7:11 a.m.
I love 7-Eleven.
I remember the last time I was like 7.
Yeah, no, like Ray woke up at he woke up at like 6 for this, man. So I'm gonna clap. You know how we do like just give this guy a big woo or whatever. I'm gonna give you a big round of applause. Please give this guy a clap, chat.
Thank you for waking up early for us.
Thank you. You woke up, like it was either that or you stayed up the whole night, but I don't know. I don't know about that. No, yeah. Ozman says woo. Yeah, we have Osri in the house. Bunny Bee, yeah, shout out to Ray, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
a bunch of the Aussie fans thanking you for getting up this early.
Yeah. Last but not least, we have our next guest, Sakura Inu. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, hi. I'm Sakura Inu. My species Shiba. Yes, Shiba. So, what I choose Shiba is basically because, even considering Taiwanese, I'm kind of small. Like, I always if you're ever studying like elementary school in Taiwan, you will know that usually the seat is assigned by your height. So if you're shorter, you get the first one. I always the first one, like closest to the teachers, always. So I think that like from my childhood to even to college. So when I choose a species, I would choose like Shiba because small compared to like husky or olive dog, right? Okay, so I moved to the US for for graduate school, like I think it's like 5 years ago, to Texas, and then been here for 5 years. I regularly go back to Taiwan like every year. So I actually still tell people to say that I'm Taiwanese because like most of my lifetime I've still like grew up in Taiwan. So I'm just a study abroad student. However, like in those few years, especially in the fandom, that I began to like explain to my friend or to new friends that I'm from Lubbock, Texas. I'm studying in Lubbock. So they will have more easily concept to know where I'm right now from. Because like in English you sometimes don't know that like where do you live or like where you're from is asking where you live right now or where you're original from.
Oh, yeah.
So I just
Absolutely.
answer the both. Yeah.
Can you remind me again? What are you studying? Are you studying biology?
Electrical.
What?
Completely
I
wrong.
thought you were in the medical field.
She's completely wrong.
Oh god.
well,
Oh
I
gosh. I thought you were going to be a doctor. Sorry, that's a little bit racist. Whoops.
So he can still be a doctor. He just needs to go do a research project and like
true. He is
be nice to a bunch of professors.
He will be like
I'm
Sakura
right now
Inu.
on the doctor program. Sure.
Yeah,
but not
definitely.
medical doctor.
PhD. Doctor,
He's gonna be like
non-medically.
Sakura. We will need to call this guy in like 4 years. We got to call this guy like Sakura Inu PhD now. Every time if you're a guest, we cannot call you Sakura Inu anymore. So I do want to introduce briefly. We have Dan, the first maker, I believe, in Taiwan. And Dan's here. We have Qi Mao. I'll first say in Chinese, like, 如果你们大概怎么说？如果你们不太听得懂我们说的话，我觉得我们可以找一个人可以帮你们口译，就是帮你们把我们说的话翻成中文，如果需要的话。So I think maybe Gantos is thanks Gantos. He's also a Chinese speaker, so maybe Gantos can help us, or like maybe we'll pick Sakura or Ray to say, do you want to like summarize or something? But we do have a little bit of a Taiwanese audience here. We got 24 people right now.
Yeah, that's the most we've had so far.
Yeah,
since we've started doing the streams, I think. Yeah,
Because I'm so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Burger, if you want to introduce yourself, just briefly.
Yeah. Hi, I am the like just a average American guy from Texas living here in Taiwan for work as an English teacher, basically. Not for like a public school or private school. I've been just working at different kindergartens and cram schools. Just, I guess those are technically private institutions, but like not like a private high school or anything. Just a regular after school kind of a language center or cram school. Right now, I'm living in the Taiyuan area, but pretty soon I'll be moving up to Taipei, so I'll be a Taipei boy.
Hey.
Wow, fancy
like that.
city.
Yeah.
Yay, rent
and
increases.
Of course, I'm a bovine.
Oh, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be Tianlong.
Yeah, Tianlong. We have a lot of. I think I'm.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Tianlong.
Yeah, nothing wrong. Yeah,
Taipei
it just says that.
Taipei represent.
Yeah. I guess I'll go last. For me. Oh, sorry. Did you want to continue?
I kind of. This isn't a big important question, but like, Tianlong. That's what is the meaning behind that? Like, I know that's probably one of the.
Poochie explain.
I think it's best if we have Sakura Inu because he's actually Taiwanese. But my interpretation is it's a slang term which originated from One Piece. Basically, there were these characters from this elite
world government.
From this elite,
the world government.
Elite world. Yeah, basically, they would whenever they were abroad, they'd wear these helmets so they wouldn't have to breathe contaminated air, and then kind of like in Taiwan, the Taiwanese are kind of seen as a bit snooty, so the tag kind of
Yappies. Dirty fucking yappies.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, basically yappies.
Okay.
But Sakura, maybe you can fill in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
they consider the outside of the Taipei city is the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all
Oh,
over
yeah.
like even
Yeah.
Taichung or Kaohsiung are countryside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
That's that's a kind of a slang that people. I mean, that actually has a Wikipedia article. You can look it up, like Tianlongguo or Tianlongren.
way.
Yeah, believe it or not, yeah. I guess I'll go last. If I think I made this introduction several times, but I guess I got to get used to this. So my name is Michael, the Matcha Fox. I am a matcha colored fox. JC says I'm mint color, but oh well. I don't know if JC's watching. Sorry, JC.
You mean oh well?
So I am from the great state of Texas. I was actually born and raised in Hawaii. I am Lao American. So I'm kind of technically one of the guests for this particular episode. I studied history in college. I later moved to Taiwan to study Chinese. Later, I applied for my master's in translation, so I am a current student in translation. That's actually the main reason why I can speak a little bit of Chinese. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't. I am the co-host and director of this podcast. I do some stuff on the side, like voice acting, like translation work, obviously. So that kind of stuff. And I'm definitely very happy to be here. I think this is our second live stream episode. And the podcast overall has been going on for about a year, so we've lapped the full year. So again, thank you very much. Matcha in our hearts, yeah. Thank you guys very much for being here, listening to us talk about
and
more about the furry fandom.
Yeah, and because someone said hi specifically to me, Burger. Yes, hello, Dennis. I don't remember a Dennis, but yes, nice to meet you. I guess.
Yeah.
You've broken some poor person's heart.
I'm sorry.
JK.
I think so we'll jump into it. I think for my first question here, I think this belongs with actually what like Sakura was getting into. So let's go with that. It was like what do you consider yourself, right? Like based off of where you live and based off of your heritage, like would you say like you are a furry of that country or you're furry from a quote unquote home country? And I actually kind of want to start with Sakura because he was the one who brought it up. So do you want to share your thoughts about that, Sakura?
Yeah. It mostly depends on like who asks you. So if it's people from a fandom that ask you where you're from, then mostly you would think of their like which tribe. Well, not a tribe, but like which local fur you're originally from. You know, like in Texas, they have the Dallas fur, Austin fur, Lubbock fur. They have their own local group. So depends. If someone like a Texans furries asking you this kind of question, I will answer them like I'm Lubbock fur or Austin fur because actually I travel both cities a lot. So like right now I'm in Austin. So and later I'm going to do that. They're going to have a party here. So something nice. Like that. So So it depends. But if you're someone that out of the fandom, mostly I think you assume that they're asking for where you're original from because I'm just looking like a Asian face with a heavy accent. So I guess like just tell them that I'm from Taiwan and I come here for the study.
So like if you were probably talking to like a fellow fur, would you ever say that like I'm a Taiwanese fur, or would you say you're from Lubbock, you're a Lubbock fur?
Yeah, right. If it's in the fandom, or if I go out of the like Texas to somewhere else, like MFF or somewhere, I would say I'm from Texas. And right now, living in Texas. If they having a face that like questioning you or like they want to know more, you will know that they are asking for where you're original from. Or some people would ask, like, so where are you born in Texas or where you're original from? Then I would just
explain. They just reframe the question.
Right.
Yeah.
So
where you're really from, boy.
Some people would consider that a little bit not polite. To ask that kind of like a little bit like racial sensitive
Keep
stuff.
probing
So
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
I didn't
Mhm,
met
mhm.
that kind of person a lot. So mostly of people just stop and like
Good.
didn't ask further.
I want to ask the same question here for Kaiyoki because, like, you know, if you were originally born and raised in Singapore, but now you live in Australia, so like, how do you tell people like let's just say other Australian furs? How do you tell people like when they ask you, "Hey, where are you from?" or you know that question?
I usually tell them the whole story if they ask. Like a very brief one where it's like I grew up in Singapore, then I kind of studied and lived, and now I'm an Australian citizen.
Mhm.
I thought that honestly speaking, I would be moving more towards being Australian, especially because I was getting ready, you know, emotionally to renounce my Singaporean citizenship. And then
Mhm.
recently, like because Singapore has a national day where they just pump like propaganda into the community, and the propaganda song for that year was really like heartbreaking. You feel like that's Singapore pride coming up a little bit. I got really teary for like
Singapore
a
pride.
whole week. Holy fucking shit! But honestly speaking, I feel like I'm very much caught in the middle. I can't
Mhm.
really let go of being Singaporean, but I can't deny that I haven't been part of that country for like I think almost a decade now.
Mhm.
So like it's a really difficult thing. So I usually end up just telling the kind of the whole story. As a result,
I think it's
yeah.
hilarious that when you speak with other Singaporean furs or Malay furs, your Singlish comes out. I hear
Yeah,
like
I
almost
know.
every time. That's you can if you still have the Singlish. I feel like man, there's still the part of Singapore in your heart
I know.
right there.
Touch my heart, as some people will say.
Mhm.
They usually do it with
Yeah.
a rather rude gesture, but I won't replicate that on screen.
I'll ask Ray the same question here, and then I'll probably I'll answer next. But Ray, like if you're living in California, living in America, like when people ask you where you're from, like what is your common response, just so we can contrast with the other answers.
Yeah, so it's kind of a deep question. I guess
Mhm.
if I'm asked that around here, like it kind of really depends on who's asking it and what the context is, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, usually I would just say that I'm well, yeah, just that I'm from Taiwan.
Mhm.
Um, like it gets kind of complicated for me because
Mm.
the thing is I did like live here and grow up here. But like a bit, like some of the like important sorry dev dev
Developments.
dev start it Delev Delev developmental time. Gosh, why is speaking so hard today?
You're awake at 7 a.m. my
Yeah.
child.
Oh my
You are
lord.
allowed not to have your full lexicon
Yeah,
of
you woke up too
words.
early.
Thank you for being here once again.
Mhm.
It just sounded really weird, like pronouncing the first part of the word for some reason. And I was like, wait, no, that's the right word. Yeah, but a lot of the years like were spent growing up in Taiwan too. So it is definitely part of my identity, but it's not really like
Mm.
who I am really, because I mean I
Yeah.
am a U.S. citizen. I was born here. But it's kind of like the common
Wait, you're U.S.
you know,
citizen?
Asian American experience.
You're
Yeah,
U.S.
U.S.
citizen?
citizen.
Show me your passport. Show me your passport right now. Nah, I'm kidding. No. I can do it. We talked about this on, like, sorry to interrupt. Like, I remember I'm gonna
Sorry,
pull it
I
out
just
just so
have
people
dumb
don't fucking.
fox paws. I can't get passport
I'm not gonna
things.
open my
It's
passport, but anyone who says I'm not from the States, here you go. I really want to change to say like the Republic of Texas, but sorry. Continue your story. Continue your story.
It
Oh
won't
my
happen. It won't happen until they secede.
God.
Oh my god, that's gonna be so chaotic if they do. Jesus Christ.
Can I apply for a Republic of California
Yeah,
passport?
California Bear Republic,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a follow up question for Ray because then like well let's just say like you attend Infernity. What do you tell the people there though? Like when you're in Taiwan, do you say you're from America or do you say you're from Taiwan?
I honestly I say that I'm from America.
Hmm.
But I just say like uh I think basically I just say Hua Chao, like
yeah.
overseas Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Because the problem is also that I've spent so many years like outside of Taiwan too that I'm not really like a native Taiwanese. So I can't interact with people with the same like fluency, not just in language but also like in cultural awareness and like awareness of the locale. So I consider myself an outsider in Taiwan.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's pretty easy to communicate verbally, but it sometimes gets hard to like to do that, and especially like reading and writing. So
Oh
Is
yeah.
it something like holds you back socially? Do you feel like you're more reserved as a result of that? Sorry, it's
I
like too deep a
am
question from like
naturally
earlier.
I'm naturally pretty antisocial and like don't really
Oh.
like talk to people too much. So yeah, it's part of that problem, but also partly language barrier. Like sometimes I have to like think
It's
of how
difficult.
to form the words.
I'm like checking my phone. Has Ray responded to my text? Nah, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh no.
No.
If you don't mind me jumping in, actually,
Yeah.
I've experienced
Go ahead.
a similar sort of dilemma. So, despite being of Taiwanese descent, of being Chinese descent, Han Chinese, if you must, there's been a lot of pressure for me to learn Mandarin. So it's like when my Mandarin isn't up to scratch, I actually do experience. I'm not sure if discrimination is the right word, but then it's like they're almost a little bit like aren't you supposed to know this as if it's supposed to be common sense? So there is a bit of there's a bit of trepidation, I guess, especially because I actually didn't learn Mandarin until I moved to mainland China. So if you gave me pen and paper, I'd write in simplified Mandarin. So
Interesting.
it's a little bit different, so and makes it a bit challenging when I visit family in Taiwan. So yeah.
I want to point out because this is a little bit important. Is also actually it was not coincidental. We actually have 4 of our guests. Well, all of our guests, I really should say, are of Chinese descent. We have 3 of them from Taiwan. One of them technically from I guess more mainland China. I would assume Kaiyoki, your family mainly comes from mainland China, right? Like
So
ancestry.
my family, if you've ever heard of the Puranicans,
Oh yeah, I have.
there's apparently a real deep kind of history there.
Mhm.
I am generation 9 of the Puranicans. And yeah, kind of like Indo-Chinese, but definitely originally from China, and then we exploited some natives, and then here I'm here.
I'm probably the one guy who I don't really consider myself a full guest, but I'm the one guy who's like not of Chinese descent. I want to make that clear to the audience. My parents are from Laos, and so a lot of these issues, like I kind of bring myself on as a guest because I do want to provide like another perspective that's not like Han Chinese related, but to answer the question to myself, then like what do I tell people? I tell people I'm from Texas. If they ask me where are you from, I will say, well, I'm from Texas. And then, well, that's my joke, and then I'll usually say something like, oh yeah, I'm from America, and I was born and raised in Hawaii, and later I moved to Texas. And then they keep saying like, are you Hong Kongese? Are you Singaporean? Are you Japanese? And I was like, no, my parents are from Laos.
You get mistaken for a lot of different nationalities.
Oh yeah, like absolutely. I don't know why. Well, I kind of do. I think some people say like, yeah, are you Chinese or Japanese? Yeah, King of the Hill reference. Are you Chinese or Japanese? That has happened to me once. Someone has asked me, are you Chinese or Japanese? But like, I think like one of my friends, like a couple of my friends, have said that I have like a general Asian looking face. I don't have like the really thin like eyelids. They're like more open, and so that like I don't know, that kind of excludes me from like being like whatever, like I don't know, Japanese, I guess, I don't know, but I think like there's some Japanese people who do have like more open eyelids, but anyway, like that's not really the point. It's just
almond shaped eyes.
Yeah. Like I don't have that feature. Like I mean, I got mistaken when I went to the Philippines. I got mistaken as Filipino. And so like I'm like the joke is that I'm the pan Asian man. Like wherever I go in Asia, like I'll blend in. Yeah, like it's a good thing and a bad thing. Because then like people here in Taiwan will think, you know, I'm Taiwanese or I'm some kind of Asian, which is like kind of wrong. Like I'm not actually Asian though. Yeah.
Do they continue thinking this after you've, produced your dulcet tones for them?
Yeah. Yeah, so like when I speak yeah, right. So like when I speak English, like it's it's a little bit more clear that I don't like have a Taiwanese accent when I speak Mandarin. I get a lot that I speak with like a Cantonese accent or like I'm from Hong Kong. I'm not really sure. Not I can kind of hear that, but yeah. Anything did you want to add or ask, Burger, to any of our guests or to that topic?
I mean, that just reminds me of last night when we were both at 7-Eleven in Taipei. You basically even said like you wish you had a GoPro or a camera just to show the difference between when the store clerk was talking to you and then talking to me, because he spoke to you in full Mandarin Chinese,
Yep.
and then he spoke to me in the best English he could produce. Even though when I responded to him in Mandarin Chinese, he still spoke English to me.
Happened last night. Yeah. We walked into 7-Eleven to buy drinks. Yeah, and then like and then he's speaking in Mandarin. I gave him my money, and then the Burger King. He's like 96 or 94 or whatever. I was like, oh man,
Yeah,
like, all right, here we go.
Oh no! Oh no! Really sad, really cute at the same time. Oh,
but I would assume the same thing happens to you, though, Ray. Where like if you are ethnically Taiwanese, like and they just say like oh like do they probably just assume you're Taiwanese, right? If you're just going about your day, 7-Eleven or whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was actually just thinking like when I was like last in Taiwan, way back in infirmity, 2019. Like people talk to me in like fluent Mandarin, and they just when they see me, they just see me as like any other person in Taiwan. So like they're talking with me in fluent Mandarin, and I also respond to them in the same way, but like sometimes I struggle to keep up with the conversation because I like thinking of the words to like what the words are to like transmit my thoughts, because I'm not as good as in Chinese as English. So
me too.
It's a bit of a struggle, but yeah, I mean, I just blend in like anyone else in Taiwan.
What about
I kind of get. Oh, sorry.
No, you go, please.
Oh, I mean, I kind of get a similar thing in here in the U.S., where like sometimes people will, like, if I go to like an Asian grocery store, like people will talk to me sometimes in Chinese.
Oh no.
But at least I still understand Chinese, so I could like talk to them, like respond to them in kind. But sometimes like they just assume I don't know, and then they speak in English, and then I respond in Chinese, and they're like, oh, you actually know Chinese.
Well, I've got a follow-up question, and I'll ask Poochie this. I want to ask you first. So if you go to a Mandarin-speaking dim sum, do you order in Chinese? Or a Chinese restaurant? Do you
if I know? Oh, sorry. If I know that it's like generally like Asian speaking at the place, like it's the right it's the right ethnicity there, then I will use Chinese to speak with them. It's the nice thing about it is it's a very quick, like, extra not only bonding, like it's a relationship builder, I guess. Like people have a better it's not really a better impression of you, but like people have a better impression of you. Like if you use Chinese to speak, they'll be like really excited and happy.
Well, I guess they don't get to use Chinese much. Like it's a feeling, and like if they're like speaking to you in this like boom, 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 like mainland China kind of like style, and you're just really confused. Like, I had that happen to me once or twice, and they just see the disappointment in their face, and they're like, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, it is actually a big problem that like there's a lot of ABC American-born Chinese who don't speak Mandarin at all, because you know they don't have to learn it and they shouldn't be forced to learn it, of course. But then people just speak to them in Chinese and they're like, "Oh, I don't know Chinese, sorry." It makes for awkward interactions. Sorry, go on.
For Poochie, in Australia, like again, if you're going to like a Chinese restaurant, do you use Mandarin or like what's the language that you would use first?
That's a good question. And the original question was if I go eat dim sum, and I suppose yes. And the reason why dim sum kind of hit me a little is basically dim sum, in my opinion, is a Cantonese, like Hong Kong kind of cuisine. So out of I suppose political correctness, I do not feel comfortable speaking Mandarin, ordering dim sum. Just because of the current conflict. But then for Chinese restaurants in general, what I tend to do is I tend to listen out to how the staff interact with each other because sometimes in certain Chinese restaurants, it actually could be run by, let's say, someone who's Cambodian, who's Vietnamese, or they could be speaking another dialect of Chinese that I don't speak. So it's like I used to listen out, and if they speak 国语, 普通话, then usually I start speaking Chinese with them. But then if it's a dialect that I'm not familiar with, or if they're speaking a foreign language, then I just stick to English.
Okay. I'll say my response, and I've got a question for our Singaporean guest and also the Singaporeans in the chat, because I know Decro's in the chat, I know Zonorth is in the chat, so I got a question for you guys coming up. For me, in the States, because I can actually, at that point, I could actually speak Mandarin. I actually opened up with Mandarin. I do have that issue. I do have like that caution if it's a Cantonese speaking dim sum, but there were enough Mandarin. Like the one place I went to, they had Mandarin speakers. So I actually just asked them if they speak Mandarin. I say, 你会普通话吗? Like I'll just ask them. But I do agree. Like if they're like, you know, if everyone there is speaking Cantonese, you know, then I'm like, okay, I'll try not. You know, I don't know Cantonese. I just don't know. I would have to have like a pocket ganto, so I don't have a pocket ganto though. But yeah, like in the States, like back in 2019 and 2020, you know, the year of COVID. Well, before COVID happened, and I was able to order dim sum and I just like live an average life. Yeah, like I kind of opened up with Chinese first. I got some compliments. I think they assumed I was Chinese. And then I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. Here we go. But you know, this is not the first time that's happened to me. But you know, like I want to practice my Chinese, so I felt like it was okay thing for me to do. I did have a question for Kaiyoki, Decro. I think Zonorth is in the chat. So if you are Holu's in the chat. Yeah, so if you are in the chat and you're Singaporean, serious question: do you order in Chinese in Singapore? If you are Singaporean and you're in the chat, and you can speak Mandarin, will you order in Mandarin? In Kaiyoki, you can go. We'll let the chat. I'll pause. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll give people time to kind of like think over and kind of answer in chat. But for me personally, it really depends how complex I need to go. I'm one of there was like a comedy a comedy group in Singapore who released a song like Jaga Naka, which is just basically like when you order food, you just point at what you want and you Jaga Naka, Jaga Naka, Jaga Naka, and that's just all you do. I have the speaking ability to go a bit more complex, but to be honest, like when you go to like a zita place where it's just lots of literally mixed dishes, it's really fucking difficult. Like I don't know what the fuck eggplant is in Chinese. So I
forgot as well.
Yeah, 这个菜那个肉.
Kids.
I try, but I'll be honest. Like as I am now, having spent so long in Australia, it is really a struggle. Until about day 4 or 5, then I'm kind of like more integrated. And then it's not too bad. Yeah. Posri says that he can go full on, but if I remember right, Posri's Chinese is like impeccable.
And like I know Posri, like shout out to that guy, but Posri he also like writes his GFTV stuff, his news channel. He writes it in simplified Chinese. Like almost all the articles I know, like that, if I'm not mistaken, he writes that in simplified Chinese. So good job for Posri.
Okay.
Will you okay, so for the Singaporeans again, so follow-up question, will you guys, if you guys don't use Mandarin, will you use like Hokkien or will you use Cantonese? That was my follow-up question. Can you order in Hokkien?
Okay. The problem with being Singaporean is that you have some awareness that your language is a melting pot, but you just consider it Singlish, and you just know that this word is this object, or maybe these two words is this like object or dish, and you just use the word, but you're not really sure which background it comes from. And it's a lot of like when you're going out to eat with people, that's all like, isn't it a Canto word? No, Hokkien ne. And there's a lot of that back and forth.
Yeah.
It's a lot of arguing.
Shout out to Nerix, by the way. He's Singaporean, right? Nerix is. I've heard his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out
So
to him.
Nerix, he's actually one of the first Singaporean first that I talked to back in there. I'm not sure if he remembers that, but I remember that. Yeah, and he says it's a mix, depending on if you think that the person who's running the store can understand you.
Yeah.
So I guess if you look and someone is like Indian, you're not really gonna try. You're just gonna go to English.
Well, you're not gonna use Tamil. You won't use Tamil with him.
Yeah, Tamil. Sorry, my bad.
I don't.
That's what I mean, but I don't know the names of the languages.
Yeah, Malay, English, Chinese at the same time.
Yeah, Malay, English, Chinese, Canto. Like you tend to kind of flow between those four languages. And it's really hard to describe why it makes sense. But I have caught myself multiple times trying to talk to people at Forum, which is the Malaysian FurCon, because everyone speaks everything there. I will just be like, blah, 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 and like everyone gets like a third of a sentence, and then you all have to work it out. So I apologize. But usually people are pretty good with it.
Yeah. I went to Singapore. I ordered in Mandarin like 60% of the time. But like most of my friends said that my Mandarin does not sound authentic enough to pass as like Singaporean Chinese. They said just use English. Like, damn it! But the problem is that like, shit, I swear, sorry. Put my money in the tip jar. No, the problem is that like I understand why they wouldn't want me to use Mandarin for the reasons I said, but being in Taiwan for so long, like I almost instinctively respond in Mandarin. And again, I'm not Chinese. I just want to let the audience know I'm not Chinese. I'm not Taiwanese. So I lived in Taiwan long enough that it's ingrained to respond in Mandarin. And then I remember sometimes if they open up with me in Chinese, I'm going to speak Chinese then. Like sometimes I go to the Hawker Center. Well, I only been to Singapore 3 times, but when I went to the Hawker Center one time, I mainly use Mandarin. I mean, I don't know any other dialect, but yeah. And then帅哥. Yeah.
Oh, 帅哥.
Yeah, 帅哥. Everyone loves 帅哥. I'm surprised you guys say that in Singapore, but yeah, I guess it's just a Chinese thing. Yeah.
God, like it's fun, It's fun. It's this person is like 55, but you're still like 小姐. So
I had a question for Sakura Inu. Like, what are you? If you go to a Chinese restaurant, will you actually speak Mandarin or will you use English?
Really depends. Like you have to make sure that they are speaking Chinese or they are capable to speak Chinese. Sometimes like you will get awkward if you speak to them in Mandarin and then turn out they're Vietnamese or like Thai, right?
Yeah.
So I usually like if it's like the first time or I never heard them speaking in Mandarin, I would just in English. One thing is good in the US that their Chinese restaurant menu always have a number. So you just have to order in the number. Like I just need a number 16. That's it. That's all the language you need to order the food, right?
Yeah. Nerek's
Yeah.
points on the outside, just to respond quick. Yeah, like he says that. Well, for me, Nerek said that my accent makes it hard for people to understand. I actually I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I definitely have an American accent when I speak Mandarin, but I it's kind of hard to get rid of that. But I actually I think this issue of like ordering food in in Chinese, I bring it up just because like again like do you think that like your audience or your speaker your listener assumes that you're Chinese or thinks you can speak Chinese, and does that determine their response? And I feel like you kind of had. I think Sakura Inu. I think I completely agree with you. Where it's like you had to look at the audience. And I think I wouldn't want to, if I go to eat pho and I go to a Vietnamese restaurant, I probably don't want to open up with Chinese. I think at that point I'll probably speak English because I don't know Vietnamese. But yeah, yeah.
There's actually a lot of Chinese restaurants. They are running by like Mexico.
Yeah,
Really,
a lot of Chinese folk that are running like
a lot of Mexican like so. It's better to use English like just for safety. You don't want to like.
It sounds like using English to stay safe is safe. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Burger.
Well, it's just this weird little story of my first ever job working. One of my first ever jobs in the U.S. working at an Asian supermarket. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the franchise 99 Ranch.
Yep. Me, Ray, and Sakura should all know that. Yeah, yeah. It's okay, Poochie. Yeah, I know that place.
Yeah. So apparently they thought I was okay to hire as a stalker and a general work boy to work in their little big old grocery store. And it was a pretty
Plano location?
diverse
Plano location?
Plano, yeah, along
Gotcha.
Spring Creek.
Gotcha.
And it was a pretty diverse amount of people that ended up working there. Like they just hired whoever. But at that time, I wasn't very good at working at a grocery store, if you could call it that kind of skill. I only kind of worked there for 4 days. I'm not going to go into too much detail about why I was terrible at that job because that's not the current topic at hand. But it later turned out like I was replaced by someone of Mexican descent who was probably, I guess, more hardworking, more accustomed to that kind of labor. So it's always interesting to go into that kind of place and to see non-Asian workers there, even though this is an American like franchise. Basically, it's just mainly run by an Asian population, I guess. Yeah.
It's fair enough. It just seems like a really odd experience I've had. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I wonder if this is similar to like where, and I'm just kind of like just thinking out loud. I wonder if it's similar to where like if I go to an authentic Mexican restaurant and I speak Spanish, like I wonder how they would think, because like I remember, was it Nerek saying like my Mandarin, like I'm not Chinese, right? So my Mandarin isn't like, I don't have an authentic accent, and if I speak Spanish, with a fairly like thick American accent, is that like, do you choose the language that's safer, right? Do you choose the language safer to communicate? Do you choose like a lingua franca, aka English, or do they understand that you're trying? I feel caught between the two. That's why I want to bring that up. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Ray. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry, but yeah, it's a pretty typical like got a foot in both sides kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like in my case, it's I'm part English speaking American and part Chinese speaking Taiwanese. So
I want to actually
kind of choose between the two.
You're actually getting to a topic I wanted to get into, so I'm glad your time is impeccable. Like the idea of like being like caught in the middle, right? if I guess this is mainly speaking to Ray, Poochie, me, and Kaiyoki, but like, you know, our ancestry might be in Asia, but our families had decided to move, or we've decided to move, and so we found ourselves in a non-Asian country. And so I kind of want to keep like poking that question though, like do you feel though like you belong in the States though? Like, do you identify as like an American? This question is to Ray.
It I feel like I do, but it takes many years to get to that point. Like, man, I don't want to talk for too long and take up everyone else's time, but like, uh, I am as American as anyone else in America. You know, like
Amen,
the only defining factor is basically that like I'm born here and I am raised here and I live here. You know, like
mm-hmm.
there's the whole thing about U.S. being a big you know, cultural melting pot, and there's kind of an unfortunate past to how that term came about. Some like pretty racist negative connotations, but like
Yeah.
I think everyone
Yeah.
gets the gist of like what it means. Like, you know, that like there's not really a defining like American. It's just that like you're born here and you know, live, work, you know, go to school here. The only difference for me is that, you know, my upbringing is in a Taiwanese household. Both my parents
Mhm.
were from Taiwan and came here for higher education and work. So that's the only thing that, you know, makes me
Mhm.
different. The kind of the problematic part is after going to school in Taiwan and coming back. Not only do I not know anyone in the U.S., but I'm also culturally adjusted to Taiwan. So I'm basically a Taiwanese coming to the U.S. almost for the kind of in some ways for like not for the first time, but like new to everything. And that is kind of what I think is the more relevant part, because that took a few years for me to fully adjust to how things are like in the U.S. And for me to feel like I belong. Because for the first few years, it was honestly pretty tough because I didn't know anyone. I wasn't like I didn't get the culture. I was in high school. And everything was about you know, pop culture and stuff, and I was like, what's this reference about? And yeah, it took a few years to to adjust to that. But yeah, now I feel like I belong, but it's a journey, and I think that's it's similar to anyone else who, you know, is coming to the U.S.
Write a biography, autobiography. I'll read it. I promise you. I'll be your narrator for your book.
I'm pretty sure
I'll
everyone
pass.
else has had an interesting past too. So
Let's pass the question on to Poochie. I mean, do you feel like you are Australian? Do you feel like you belong? I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, definitely identify as Australian. So even though Australia claims to be a multicultural country, I personally feel like there's still a white Eurocentric attitude in the general culture. For example, like if you ask someone where they're descended from, if they're Asian, they'll probably say they're of Chinese or Vietnamese descent. But then if they're white, then they're more likely to say, "Oh, I'm pure Aussie through and through." And then you're like, that's not right. You're not indigenous.
Yeah.
And then you prod them a little bit further, and then they'll probably say they're actually Scottish or Irish or something. Well, my experience with the Australian identity is a bit of a loaded question because, and sorry, this is probably going to take a while, but when I was 11, when I moved to China, I thought initially that I'd probably fit in because, you know, I was under the impression that I was of Chinese descent, so it's supposed to be where my ancestors came from. But then I figured out pretty quickly that I was actually quite westernized, so there was a lot of cultural conflicts, and not to mention the way how China does things is quite different to how Taiwan does things. And I also learned very quickly that the Chinese upbringing that my parents instilled in me is quite different to what I was seeing out there in society. And when I was living in China, because there was censorship of social media, so
Right.
during my years of living in China, I felt like I was isolated from what I deemed to be my home country, which is Australia. I couldn't access YouTube or Facebook, and I couldn't contact childhood friends. So when I returned, which was 2 years ago, it was almost like being on a time machine, because
Mm-hmm.
it was like the last time I had been to Australia was probably a good 5 or 6 years, and then suddenly it's almost as if everything's changed, and tastes have changed, cultures have changed,
Yeah.
and just the entire living environment's changed. So that was a bit of a shock to the system, but then over time, just with a bit of adjustments, I kind of found roots and traces of what Australia was when I left, and then through that, I was eventually able to refine my identity, and that brings me to where I am today.
So even if like you, this is kind of a maybe a little bit of an obvious question, but even if you like, even if your ancestry is Chinese and and you went to China, they put you in China, you would still
Yeah,
say that like you didn't really fit, the mold. You felt like a fish out of water even in China, despite the
that's
appearance.
correct. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's right, yeah. And I feel like it goes back to your earlier question where people make assumptions based upon your race. So
Hmm.
then they expected me to know things, and
Hmm. Hmm.
they expected me to have certain skills. But then when I didn't have it, it would
Hmm.
I was actually called retarded at one point. So
Really?
there's actually racism, I would say, between ABCs and the native Chinese. So
Hmm.
it's perhaps something maybe people don't really hear about very often because it's not often discussed, and it is often hidden behind a language barrier because
Hmm. Hmm.
usually you hear these kind of comments in Mandarin, so it's not very often documented. But it made me feel like an outsider pretty quickly.
Sure.
And it's something that's been. Is it something that you've only noticed recently, or something you kind of always gotten hints of?
For me, it was something I always had hints of, but then I didn't really associate it with racism until a few years ago when I finally began to. I basically just saw things from a straw man argument. It's like if you take some of the comments that were directed towards me, and then you change the race a little, then you kind of realize that you kind of realize that's not really acceptable behavior. So
Mm.
there's a bit. I wouldn't say there's ill intention. It's more so ignorance and a lack of understanding, and it's difficult for me to wrap my head around because it can be hurtful. But then it's also difficult to remember that if you grow up in a multicultural society such as Australia, then you kind of take it for granted. Then
Yeah. Yeah.
you move to a country where at the time people would literally like um, I've seen local Chinese people run up to white foreigners and ask to take pictures with them.
Hmm.
They're almost seen
Mhm.
as a novelty. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it's I suppose getting used to a new perspective from moving from a multicultural society to something which is a bit more homogenous.
Mhm. I actually had that experience of someone taking a picture of me and my coworkers when we went to the Great Wall,
Mm,
just right after our job training in mainland China. Uh, Mostly it was the nice, pretty, young-looking blonde girl,
mm.
because that's
Of course.
the most standout-ish, and attractive to, I suppose, the populace there.
Funny you should say that because back when I was living in China, I actually knew a English teacher, and he was white, and then he noticed there was a pay gap. So if you were American Chinese,
Wow. Oh my
you would
goodness.
be paid less than a white American because
Hmm. Hmm.
I suppose that they have this image that they want
Mhm,
to convey. So
mhm.
yeah.
I've noticed something a little bit similar here in Taiwan as well. I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but yeah, that's a thing.
I can confirm that's the thing.
Mhm.
I want to ask Kaiyoki this question, and if Poochie, feel free to add on to that. But I want to ask Kaiyoki first, like, because this is about Australia. Like, how multicultural is Australia though? Because, like, again, I come from the States, which is an extremely multicultural country. But like for Australia, like, you know, like how and it's a very subjective question, but how multicultural are we talking?
Honestly, it depends on the area. Certain areas you will see a lot of. I don't just mean like Asians, but like certain places, like there'll be a lot of Pinoy. At certain places, there'll be a lot of like. For some reason, the place I'm in now, I won't give exact details, but my suburb and the surrounding suburbs, full of fucking like Malaysians and Singaporeans for some reason. And there's lots of like specifically like Singaporean or specifically Malaysian like restaurants in this area. Compared to like the rest of Western Australia. Um, yeah, I can think of like pockets of people essentially all over the place. Um, and kind of because of that, each individual area is not super multicultural, barring a few suburbs. It is still like okay, I'm really sorry to kind of put it this way, but when I'm in Singapore, I walk around and I go, oh, it's a white person. Like I'm like actually shocked
Yeah.
to
Oh, yeah.
see
Yeah.
like someone who's not Singaporean. But
Right.
here, like I kind of see like I'm not as shocked to see like people of some flavor of Asian or whatever. But they're still not very common. They're not rare, but they're not common. Um, yeah, that's what I'll say. And as I've said that, I'm just thinking of my workplace and how like actually we're 50% Asian of some flavor, which is really interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with Chewbacca. So the diversity of Australia would be largely dependent on where you're at. I mean, you've got plenty of outback towns, which are pretty much exclusively white. Then you head down to, say, Sydney or Melbourne, and you've
Oh my
got like all
god.
kinds of people, people of
Sydney,
all
holy
different
shit.
ancestors. Yeah.
Holy
Although
shit.
I just wanted to comment that for Australia, for the history of Australia, immigration tends to come in waves. So back when I was a kid, so there weren't as many Chinese immigrants. So we tended to band together, whether you were from the mainland, whether you were Taiwanese, whether you were from Hong Kong, whether you were Malaysian or Malaysian Chinese or Singaporean Chinese. We kind of had our own little Asian circle. But then fast forward, that was back in 2000. Actually, I immigrated in 1995 with my family. Now, fast forward to 2022, and then you'll begin to notice there's actually some slight segregation, as in you've got the Shanghainese, you've got the Hokkiens, and then you've got
Yeah.
the Pekingers. So I feel like immigration these days in Australia, it comes in waves. So back in the 1900s, it would have been the Greeks, the Dutch, the Europeans. And these days, we've actually got immigrants from African regions such as Ethiopia, and we've also got people from South America, and I even encountered a few people from the US who want to immigrate to Australia. So it's like through time, you'll get more and more people who fall in love with the country, and then they just want to settle. So
Yeah.
it just becomes a bit more colorful.
So the US is a bit older than Australia, isn't it? Like
yeah, by about
1776. Yeah.
Yeah, by about
yeah,
100
so the
something
US
years.
it's about 200 years ahead of Australia because Australia was like early 1900s. That's kind of when it really started to kick off, and I think was seeing that development pretty much where the US was say 100 years ago. That's kind of where Australia is now. Like it's slowly becoming populated, and yeah, there is that kind of like it's strange how like there's initially it was like it doesn't matter what flavor of Asian you are, we're sticking together. And then as slowly as it kind of grew, like you see the Vietnamese people kind of bugger off that way, and you see like ow. Yeah, you kind of see that slight segregation a little bit.
Yeah.
I
I
just
had a
wanted
couple.
to.
I got a couple shout outs I want to bring up.
Yep.
First off, Osman, who I actually met in the Furs of Japan chat. Because missing here is like Japanese Americans. I don't know very many Japanese Americans or overseas Japanese, so Osman is kind of our representative. I'm going to read verbatim his comment from the chat. He says, "I'm someone who was born in South America, but my family roots are Japanese. And now that I'm here in Japan, after 3 years, I still feel like I'm on the first year here, so out of loop and not fitting in." That's a pretty big culture shock. I mean, coming from South America, he didn't specify the country, but and like just being ethnically Japanese, maybe he was, maybe like an outcast. I hate to say that, but like, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you didn't feel like you fit in South America, but then yet you go back to Japan and you don't fit in Japan.
Japan, I think, is one of the hard ones.
Yeah.
Like the more I learn about Japan, the more there's so much nuance to like Japanese culture, and I'm just like blown away. If you aren't just immersed in that from the moment you're born, I just think you do really hard, and you're just kind of playing catch up for like many years before you kind of gel in.
Yeah, I think most of that would just be the very, very subtle and very hidden like social rules that you would only know if you're Japanese or raised Japanese.
Actually, I'd like to hear this commentator's opinion, because my understanding of Japanese culture is very similar to the Chinese in the sense of, because it's a very homogenous society, there's often prejudice. They often make assumptions. So when you moved to Japan, did you find that you were set to unrealistic and unfair standards just because of your skin color? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, let's send that question out to Osman. So Osman, do you feel like, well, I mean, basically what Poochie's question was, you can take your time to respond. I'll read one of Osman's questions that isn't in response to that, but we'll give Osman time to respond to that. Osman says, so far when it comes to connecting people, I have a really tough time to meet and make Japanese friends, while I can be very fine with foreigners regardless of what country they are from. Very interesting. Yeah. Do you actually Can Poochie, can you repeat the question for Osman just one more time, just in case he didn't catch it?
Sure. So, Osman, my question is, my interpretation of Japanese culture is there's overlap with Chinese culture, where because they live in such a homogenous society, they often make assumptions and prejudices based upon your skin color. So, with you being a foreigner in Japan, were you ever held to any unfair or any unrealistic standards simply by the color of your skin?
Okay. And then Kaiyoki, did you want to ask a question?
Oh, not so much a question, but I just had a comment of like Osman's comment, where like there's a degree of, because they were saying like they're fine with foreigners regardless of what country they're from. There's a degree of comfort in like being kind of like a fish out of water with another fish out of water, And even if you kind of feel like you've integrated quite well now, that feeling, like that feeling, like is something that you just have with you, kind of forever. Something you empathetically understand, and that like automatically is like a shared experience that you just both have. Yeah. Anyway.
Do you guys by any chance know Akiba Wolf? I think Ray knows, and I think Burger knows. Do you guys know Akiba Wolf, the videographer?
Yeah.
By any chance? I just invited him. I just PN'd him just in case, because he's also like Chinese Canadian, so hopefully we'll get him coming in to talk more about that as well. We'll wait for Osman's response. He hasn't responded. Yeah, I don't know much about Australia, so that's why I asked those questions. Never been. I want to go. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to add something else which surprised me during my travels around Australia. So when I went to Tasmania, which is, if you've ever seen the map, it's literally an island just south of Australia, tiny little island, pretty remote. Right. I kind of expected to be the only Chinese on the island, but then lo and behold, turns out there was a massive community, and one of the factors that influence immigration is how easy it is to get permanent residency. So there are actually certain remote regions of Australia where it's easier for you to settle down, like to get the relevant paperwork. So then people often move there as a stepping stone to eventually gain citizenship, and then they'll move to a bigger city such as Sydney and Melbourne. And that really caught me by surprise because I was literally in, say, Alice Springs or Darwin, or even at one point there was a outback homestead where the nearest town was probably a 4-hour drive away, and there the clerk was a backpacker from China. So you'd be surprised by the diversity in some of the more remote regions of Australia as well.
I've never heard that before. That's really interesting. I've never been to Down Under. I'm not sure if I'm allowed
I
to say
just
that.
want to
I'm allowed
very
say that.
briefly agree. If you go to like the remote mining towns in WA, you will always find a Filipino restaurant and grocery store. Jesus fucking Christ. Doesn't matter how small the town is, there will always be one of each. So anyway, that's all. Small comment. Thank you. Ooh.
I think Osman finally responded. So I'm gonna read it. He says, "Well, not because of my color of my skin, but rather the fact that I'm a foreigner. Since I look Japanese, you have a glance at me and you can say, yep, a local. And then when I speak to you in a weird accent, but you do get treated differently just by the fact that you're not a native." Yeah, I've been to Japan once and I could kind of feel that. I feel, despite looking Japanese, I think at first they'll just think I'm Japanese. I think that's what happened. And I was wearing a suit, by the way, so I probably looked like a salaryman. I got a picture. I can show you.
Always dress up formally.
I can show you a picture. I wish I could just flash it on the screen now, but like, I wore a suit and tie because my persona wears a suit and tie. It's a thing I do, and I think most people just left me alone because I looked Japanese. Of course, when I started speaking like English, then yeah, I think they'll get the point that I'm a foreigner. My taxi driver kept speaking to me in Japanese. Like he's like, "Oh, America desu. Oh, sugoi." So I was like, "All right, man. All right. Thank you, thank you. I don't know what you're really saying. I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But I just want to go to JMOF 12. Was it Loisier Hotel? Please just take me to the Loisier Hotel. I can't speak Japanese. No, but he was a nice guy though. And so sorry, I'm inviting Rick right now. Just in case, I know Rick has been to England as a Malay person. He's been to England, and actually Rick is part Chinese, so I'm trying to invite Rick right now. Who knows if he'll be on the podcast? Ooh. But
so when was he in England?
I'm not sure. I really don't. I'm sending him a message like as we talk.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm wondering if there's
here.
I'm just wondering if there's overlap between my time in the UK and this guy.
Oh, Rick?
Probably.
Rick?
Yeah.
Rick is right now in Malaysia, but he spent some time in England.
Yeah, okay.
And then we have like we do have Skrill from Hong Kong, who is now in the United Kingdom. So hello, Skrill. Thank you for being a supporter of the show and the podcast. I want to share a little bit about my background, and maybe you guys can like reflect on this. So I'm born and raised in Hawaii, which is really interesting because it is the only state in the U.S. where Asians outnumber whites. It's like 60 or 70% Asian American, or someone of Asian descent. There's also Pacific Islander added to that number, I think. And so I grew up thinking it was normal to see Asian people or Pacific Islanders. And so when I moved to Texas later, I was like, this is really multicultural. My high school had like a couple Colombians, Colombian American, students of like Mexican descent, students of like Ethiopian descent, students who were a Pakistani or Indian descent. I think I met a Muslim for the first time in Texas. We don't have very many Muslims in Hawaii. And so my time in Texas, I always emphasize to people that it is so I lived in the Dallas area, and it has always been a very multicultural experience, and I love that. Oh, yeah. Like I had like this weird reverse culture shock where it's like wow, there's so many white people here. That's weird because whites are the minority in Hawaii. But then at the same time, it's like I like that because like I like how like I like well I like the multiculturalness. So like there's whites, like now there's more whites that, but I mean now there's more blacks and now there are more Mexicans, and like I never felt like I was a victim of racism though. And I don't know if I can say that for my family. So here's a brief story about my family. Um, my parents are from Laos. They fled Laos because of the Vietnam War. So it wasn't just Vietnam that was affected by the Vietnam War. There were Laos and Cambodia were affected, and eventually in Laos there was a civil war, the communist one. My parents left because they hate communism, and then so I think they were sponsored to go to the States. I think it was just like maybe donations by just really nice good Samaritans, and so they the state that they immigrated to was Texas. Actually, is actually in Amarillo. To this day, there's like a ghetto. There's a Lao American ghetto in Amarillo, Texas, of like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, maybe even more than that. And those are the origins of my family. I think my dad told me that during his time there was this element of racism in the 1980s, you know, and like, you know, at the US was exiting segregation in the 60s and 70s. So this is like the remainder end of, well, this is how it was in the States, right? The US was trying to leave these segregationist policies that were still strong until like what, the 1960s or so, like 1963 I think it was. And so my dad overall said like he didn't really feel that there's much racism, and my experience in the States has actually been roughly the same. And so I kind of want to ask like Ray that question, like did you ever feel like, you know, racism was a thing growing up, or like even now?
Honestly, it kind of varies, but I would strongly say yes. Actually, from my experience, at least,
Mhm.
it's more of
I'm
a
surprised.
problem
I'm
in
actually
like
surprised.
it's mostly like prominently a problem in grade school. But that's
Mhm.
more of grade school problems. But it's pretty prevalent.
Mhm.
But outside of grade school, it's maybe because being in the Bay Area, so it's a bit there's a bit less because there's a pretty large Asian American community,
Yeah.
either from all across East Asia, a lot of Taiwanese and Chinese, and
Yeah.
everywhere else, honestly.
Mhm.
But yes, there still are problems though. It's less prominently though.
Mm.
But yeah, there's often, especially lately in the U.S., there's often news of like Asian American or what was it, hate crimes against
Yeah.
Asian Americans.
Cause like a COVID,
Which
right?
which
Mhm.
unfortunately also happens quite a lot in the Bay Area too.
Mm.
But yeah, I guess without going into too much other details, that's basically the gist of it.
I'm really surprised because I always picture California as like a liberal haven and in a real melting pot. I wouldn't think Texas would be so like accepting of cultures, but I found it to be like not as racist as people thought.
Yeah, it's honestly quite a lot of it is just a facade. It's people
Mm.
talk about California being liberal, and you really live here, and it's like, yeah, it's just a bunch of I don't know, closet conservatives.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I
Hey,
I go ahead, Poochie.
well, just a general comment. Like, having lived in China, Australia, Taiwan, as well as the UK, what I tend to find is, in the West, racism tends to be a little bit more subtle. It tends to be a bit more layered, whereas
Mm.
in the East, it tends to be a bit more blatant, in your face, and
Yeah.
obvious. So
Mhm.
maybe rating. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Perhaps a better way to describe it is racism is a little bit more. Would you say racism is perhaps a little bit more hidden, as in like it's not it's a bit more in microaggressions in California compared to
Microaggressions. Oh, sorry, go on.
oh no, just, as in like microaggressions would be a better way to describe the racism in California compared to say racism in a Bible bashing state such as Texas.
Honestly, I haven't been too much to like places outside of California in the U.S. So I don't know too much about like what it is like on the ground. like I visited for work a few times or for furry conventions, but they're not honestly too aware of how things are. I do know that in places like I have some family in Washington, in Seattle area, so I know like over there it's honestly racism could get surprisingly bad, despite how liberal some people think that like Seattle area could be because of all the tech workers going there. But yeah, it's honestly gets pretty bad. Like early on in the pandemic, they were like yelling at people to take off their masks in the schools, and they viewed it as like like scare theater kind of stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of those problems. In California, it's I feel like yeah, it's partly like microaggressions, but it's also like a lot of stuff are behind closed doors, kind of thing. Yeah, I would say it's less. It is less. What's the word you use? Um,
Less
I guess
blatant,
like less
less
overt,
outward.
less blatant. Yeah,
Mhm.
than in East Asia.
Right.
I want to give a brief shout out to Sezakaya. He is an Indonesian fur saying something. Oh, sorry, he's an Indonesian fur who I think he recently, or no, I think he might have joined from the start of the chat, but the stream. But then also, I think our numbers bumped up just a little bit. We're at 31 viewers, so thank you again, guys, for viewing. In tuning in to us. Oh yeah, thank you. So and then Burger, back to you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like, I was gonna pass it over to Sakura since he actually is in
Yeah.
Texas, where that there's the stereotype of the Bible thumping conservative. So, how would you compare your experience to Ray Ting's?
Yeah.
Like general in Texas area are more conservative. And also, the place I live is like West Texas, so it's more like people are, say generally like a redneck or something. So, but I don't know. I kind of probably I don't know lucky one or something. I barely having some trouble with like the racial thing or something. Uh, mm, the only thing I would think of right now is some kind of like they were knowing you speaking Mandarin, and then they have a having like hassle or something, and the next second they realize you're not Chinese, you're Taiwanese, and like we're changed later. Like I don't know, probably it's politics stuff, and like if they're conservative, if they're Republican, and like they were
What
acting.
it's more important whether you're a Democrat or a Republican compared to what race you are.
Yeah,
Could
see,
be.
you are Taiwanese or Chinese. They were conservative, like they were changing their like attitude
Yeah.
from that. Yeah, but
Wow. Okay.
generally I didn't met much. Like I've been here for 5 years. I didn't
Yeah.
see like
That's a long time.
never been
Mhm.
in like a racial attack. I think it's more a thing that would happen in the West Coast or in the North. Like, do you remember Anna? Anna, who lived in Chicago.
Oh, I know, right? In Chicago. Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah, he got a bunch like getting racist outing and something,
Yeah.
and mostly it's from like American African. Most of the racists are not from white people, are from from black people.
Interesting.
I don't know why, but it's like it's a culture thing up there in Chicago area. They have a really big overlapping with the community with like Asian and the black. So they have sometimes have kind of conflicts between them.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that. I think that is one of the first times I heard that in my entire life. Actually, I didn't know that. I've had several black friends, but I usually don't like go out of my way to just like hang out in black communities. But I don't know how I would feel. Yeah. I think I wanted to say we're at 36 right now, so I don't know where 36 people came from, but thank you for being here. Welcome to the show. I think Karavak is here. Kiba says he's busy. Kiba can't join. We have Rain. Thank you for joining, Rain. I think Rick says he just did like a 4-hour drive, so he's like resting, I think.
Oh.
So thank you. I don't know if he's actually in. I don't think he's in yet, but yeah, I think when Rick comes in, we can ask him some more questions. I still want to I actually still want to ask. Yeah, he said that's us. I want to ask Sakura Inu a question because I want to move the topic along here. Because you mentioned that you've lived in Texas for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're becoming more of an American nowadays? Do you feel that in you, or do you still like do you feel like you're more Taiwanese, or you know how do you feel?
I feel like stuck in the middle. Like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of like behavior when I went back to Taiwan, I didn't realize that I have some like my behavior or my attitude or like the
Mhm.
way I think my personality. And but somehow like my old friend or the friend in Taiwan or especially Furry who are close to me, they literally said that you cannot have a little bit change. Like you're emerging
Mhm.
a little bit like you're not like Taiwanese anymore. A little bit having like they also have hard time to explain that. I don't know. I even didn't aware that at all. So I don't know. Mike, how about you? Like when you
Hmm.
moved to Taiwan, do you have like an influence by Taiwanese or becoming more Asian or like
Yeah,
not
yeah. I think
not
I am.
100% American anymore?
I think I'm like 90% American, 10% Asian, and it's weird. It's because I've been talking about this with my friends lately. Like even just today, I met Lan Fei, and then I also met Casey, Beast Fantasia. By the way, I don't think they're here in the chat right now, but I just met them today for we're having American barbecue. We went to Baba Kevin's, and I told them like, you know what, I don't really want to be Taiwanese, and I think like I'd rather be known as like an American living in Taiwan. But I think like the idea of like being more indirect and discreet about what you want to say, some of that has seeped into me, but it usually hasn't. Um, the idea of like trying to be polite, first and foremost, and trying not to cause a fuss. Like I think that I think I've adopted that a little bit more. I think I originally had that kind of personality, though. Maybe that's just how I am. I think that's just from something I originally have. Um, and so, but yeah, I can't quite describe it. But I feel like I'm slowly picking up some Taiwanese traits. But then I feel like I don't know if they're really permanent right now. I think it's just more like like how do you say it? 适应, like a adaptation. It's not like a permanent like addition to my personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I yeah, like I think that's how I would put it. I had a question. I did have a follow-up question. I just suddenly lost it. Sorry, so I guess someone else
I
don't want to
can,
go.
yeah, I can
Mhm.
say that I've had to do those sort of adaptations as well, whether I lived in mainland China or here in Taiwan. You know, the whole like in America, it's usually normal to leave your shoes on inside the house.
I
But
find
you
that
go
so
to
weird, dude. Not my house. That is
here.
so weird. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It's
I had to say it.
I don't know. It's probably not
Mhm.
a thing in Asian American
Yeah.
households, but
Yeah, probably
outside of
not.
that, yeah, it's common.
And what
But you go to
chat. Like, I
Asia.
just want to ask chat. Like, do you take your shoes off? Like, do you take your shoes off before you enter the house? I'm asking chat right now. Do you take your shoes? Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Asian or white. Do you take your shoes off?
Mhm.
Sorry, and go ahead, Burger.
But like basically once I started living in China and Taiwan, I was very much more aware of it. And like even when someone who is more native Taiwanese would still have their shoes on when entering my apartment, I was like, hey, wait, you should take those off.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of like this is
So
my
you
domain.
told
You
that
should
you told a Taiwanese person to take their shoes off.
Yes, I did.
Wow. Wow.
In
Wow.
my general experience, I've done a bit of traveling myself. Um, I tend to find keeping your shoes on is a very American thing. As in Australia, I've got friends who are white, who are Asian, who are Middle Eastern. Everyone takes their shoes off. When I was in the UK, everyone took their shoes off, regardless of
Mhm.
their race or their culture. I'd say, in my experience, it's a very American thing to keep your shoes on when you enter the house.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll accept that. Yeah, as a white American, I'll accept that.
That's just my personal experience. So everyone, please join in.
Yeah, everyone's like, okay, I'll read. Holu says always. Osmond says, you bringing the dust in, so no shoes. Bunny B says, yep. Yep to shoes off. Gantos, shoes off. Sezakaya is Indonesian. Yes to shoes off. Puff Gremlin says, depends. Are you from Japan, Puff? Are you European?
No, Japan is West Australian. They live
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
that way.
Huschin says yes.
That way, about 21 kilometers.
I'm footless right now. I just want to say it right. I'm not gonna show my feet on stream because it's not that kind of stream, but I'm footless right now. I know I should have indoor slippers. I don't have indoor slippers because this is a taofang. It's just a single person studio apartment. But like in general, like when you go to someone's house, they'll probably give you the blue and white toxie, the blue and white sandals.
Now you have those. Have you also seen? Because I've seen this before. Have you also perchance used the specific bathroom slippers?
Oh.
Like bathrooms. Like what?
Yeah.
Do you mean?
He's talking about like, you know how in Taiwan you go to some bathrooms and then you'll actually have slippers that you're supposed to wear.
Oh, for the bathroom itself, I've never seen that.
That's it. Yeah.
I've never seen that.
The first time I've seen that,
silicon ones.
Yeah, silicon kind of a thing. The first time I've seen that was actually when I was in a hotel / homestay in South Korea, just visiting as a tourist for like 2.5 days, and I didn't know what to do with them because they didn't fit my feet, so I just kind of left them.
That's on your host.
There's an art. I mean,
they knew they were having a white person in.
Which is funny because it's funny because the host of that little room, her English was not great. I could not speak Korean, but we did both know how to sort of communicate in Mandarin Chinese. So that was our lingua franca.
You know, my Amat has bathroom slippers, and they're too small for me. So my way of getting around it is just tiptoeing. So I just keep my toes on the slipper, so I don't have my feet on the floor, and then I just kind of walk around as if I've got high heels and do my business, and hopefully I don't make a mess.
You were saying you were like kind of bare tiptoeing across the wet toilet floor. You fucking gonna die, man.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's a risky game, but Mission Impossible.
Oh my gosh.
I need to
I've never seen.
That's okay. He's Aussie. You can swear.
Can someone like buy me them? Like I never seen, or I've used like shower shoes, but I've never seen the bathroom slippers. Can someone like send me that for?
The weird knobbly ones, right? That have like holes all the way through them, so they dry really easy.
They're like holes.
Like a thick silicon sponge. Very high velocity.
That sounds like a good that for me.
Yeah, go to like a cheapo general merchandise kind of a store like Xiaoba or something, and then you'll see them.
Yes, 就能找到啊。
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, man, if you're a true Taiwanese, if you go to the night market to get that stuff, man.
Oh, mate.
I've gotten bed sheets at night markets.
You're Taiwanese. I'm not.
Yeah.
You're Taiwanese. No. Yeah. Yeah. That might be me in an hour, but man, where were we going with that besides the shoes thing?
I think we were gonna wait for some answers from the comments.
Bathroom slippers. I don't know. Let's see. We're talking about bathroom.
It seems like a lot of people have had that experience where the bathroom slippers are just way too small.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're generally just the size of an Asian auntie's feet.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
They're meant for the size of the people who will use them. And no one else.
So I guess something we could talk about is, so you've mentioned all the things that are different or similar, or the kind of culture shocks you've had when living in one country or another. So what is currently keeping you in your current place, like not just like for work purposes or study, like what would be keeping you in your current country, basically?
That's
I
a
don't know
tough
if
one.
Can I go first?
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes. So the reason why I'm happy to be in Australia is because of stability. So to be frank, the UK was where I felt the most at home, both culturally and from my circle of friends. But then, because of visa problems, I had to return to Australia. So it's liberating not having to worry about any work permit issues, and it's basically a compromise because Taiwan legally I had the right to live and work in China and Taiwan. China, as I mentioned earlier on, I had some not so positive experiences with racism. With Taiwan, I suppose, to be frank, the average wage in Taiwan is actually not very high. So I feel like by being a Westerner at heart, Australia kind of fits the bill where I can make a relatively decent living and also not have to worry about whether I can remain in the country or not. So that's why I'm choosing to remain in Australia for the sake of stability.
I guess I'll go because we'll just kind of wrap up with the Australian thing.
Yeah.
My qualifications are most relevant in Australia. If I go overseas, like the process to convert that can be a little complicated, to be honest. So it was just kind of easier for me to stay here. But also, I think mainly is if I'm perfectly frank, it's like the wages and the existing like network of friends. If not for those two things, like I would be gone to Canada or something. That might be where I end up next, to be honest.
All the Canadians in the house say yay.
Pilcat just so like what you keep in Australia is me. And like, yeah, you are part of that, Pilcat.
Oh, that's
You really
Pilcat?
are.
Puff,
Best
Puff
Pilcat, yeah.
Oh,
You've
I'm so
seen them in
sorry.
VR
Happy
chat.
birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Happy birthday.
But yeah, honestly, like the friends and the fact that my wages are 3 times higher, actually maybe even 4 times higher than what I would be getting in Singapore. So like I can just, I'm happy to spend at least another decade or so here, and then I might think about it afterwards. But yeah.
How about Sakura?
I'm still in school, so I haven't graduated. Anyway, I have to start here for like 1 or 2 more years. But afterward, yeah, I would say job opportunity.
So you do plan on staying in America? It doesn't have to be Texas, but you do plan on staying in America to work.
At least for now, for the short term, goal.
Okay.
Then how about Ray?
It's a good question for me, I guess. Because I've actually thought about moving back to Taiwan.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is mainly just wherever I could get a job. Taiwan, there is some. I guess I forgot to mention the intro part. But I work as in. Well, I kind of had a variety of different jobs before, but I work in the tech industry. So Taiwan does have a tech industry too. Not just in Hsinchu, but also there's a lot of companies that Western companies that set up offices in Taipei. Like for example, like Google has a pretty sizable office in Taipei 101.
101. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've thought about going back because like honestly, I'm kind of tired of living in California or the US.
Yeah. Oh.
Like I thought about moving out of California for one, but because I kind of just been here for too long, but I also thought about moving out of the US for kind of just because I wanted to get out of California, but also because I'm kind of tired of the political climate here and some of the things that go on here. But yeah, it's basically, for me, it's basically anywhere that has job opportunities and that either has English or Chinese as the main language. And unfortunately, PRC won't work for me because I kind of don't want to live in mainland China.
Amen, brother. Amen.
You don't want to share your data with all the Chinese government officials?
I don't
why
like having
are you so
WeChat.
stingy, my dude?
I mean,
I don't like having WeChat.
personal
I
data.
really...
Yeah.
Ganto says amen.
I mean,
amen.
it's either
I don't
it's
want
either
to
you
literally be.
yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
don't
either
wanna
you share
literally
your
have-
data with the Chinese government or you share it with Google. Either way.
Or both.
I'm okay with Google. I'm okay with Google.
Mhm.
Actually,
Well, at least I get something in
Please.
return from Google. With China, it's literally just a nation state trying to attack you all
Yeah.
the time.
Mm.
Oh my
Anyway,
God.
Yeah.
what was
You're
it?
gonna land. You're gonna start to be taken away one day from your head.
Poochie had a
No!
question? Poochie had a question?
Actually, I was just gonna. Oh, no, I was just gonna make a comment. When I was living in China, whenever I told people I was Taiwanese, the first question they would ask me is, "So, do you think so do you think Taiwan belongs to China?" They just
Oh,
want to.
God.
It's a loaded question, and they
Oh
just
my
wanted
God.
to. They just want to see how you respond, and I'm just like,
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
"Gan,
Mm.
gan,
Yeah,
gan, gan, gan."
Oh,
Say it.
yeah.
It's not Tony, mate.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
gan ni niang.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
kids in the audience. This is a rated 18 panel. Sorry.
Just say fine,
All
go
right.
on,
It's okay. We're still PG-13 for English-speaking audiences, and that's Twitch, right? It's an English-speaking platform.
I just
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, everyone, I love everyone's avatars right now on the for Lord Third. Thanks for submitting. I just love Sakura Inu because like just looking at he's like the most silly out of I think we're all like,
Huh?
I don't know, like his is just silly. I love the shout out to Kudo for Kaiyoki's with the cell phone thing. Like if you know, you know. That's all I gotta say. If you know, you know.
Okay.
If
you
you're
know,
on
you know.
Facebook, you know, you know. But I guess I'll go ahead and answer this question. So why do I stay in Taiwan? What's keeping me? The fur community. Like why haven't I moved out? It's mainly because the fur community, but then a close second. So I'll kind of echo Kaiyoki and Ray perhaps. Like I'm better qualified in Taiwan to do my job because I'm a native English speaker, and so I live in a country where most native speakers are Chinese speakers. So whenever I translate, I'm usually the go-to guy for Chinese to English translation. If I'm in, if I go back to the States, my Chinese is not good. So I don't know how I could compete against, the thousands of Chinese and Taiwanese people living in the States. Like they can kick my ass. They can run circles around me. When it comes to translation. And so like I actually have an edge. I have a market advantage. I'm competitive, relatively speaking. And like as long as I can get the interview, like I can prove to people that I'm a native speaker. Otherwise, like I'll submit my translation documents, which you normally should anyway. But no, like I do want to emphasize, like it's been the fur community that's been like keeping me grounded here. So shout out to the Taiwanese furries. Shout out to people like Sakura Inu who I only met you in Texas actually. But like I was so glad that I got to go to Elon with you. We saw each other in Elon like a couple of months ago before he left. Had barbecue with you. And then but yeah, but again, like the practical side of me says that yeah, it's like the job opportunities. I've been taking a lot more cases lately, and I'm earning more money for the past like couple of months. So I feel like I've got a niche here.
Just because you brought up how speaking good English gives you a competitive advantage in Taiwan, just reminds me of this cultural shock I experienced. So I was watching this interview where this lady asks questions to this pilot who works for Taiwan's major national carrier, China Airlines. So just in case you're wondering why I'd be watching that, I'm a massive aviation geek. So they were talking about what it takes to become a pilot, and then they asked, so what's the trickiest part about the pilot interview process? And then in my mind, as a Westerner, I was thinking he's going to say, it's the maths and physics. But no, his immediate reaction was, it's the English. And I was like, what?
Really?
Apparently for them, finding people who are good at maths and English, not too much of a problem. So people who are good at maths and physics, not too much of a problem. But then finding someone who's good at English is the challenge.
Really? I didn't
So
know
it's
that.
a bit of a,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And that's why I'm here in Taiwan, I guess.
Yeah.
All you people who are so shit, you give me a job.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ray.
Sorry, I was just gonna say you probably know this, but like in the aviation industry, isn't there like some requirement where you have to be able to speak English and like don't also like flight attendants, the pilots, like everyone has to know how to speak English like fluently too.
That's correct, yes. So the minimum requirement is what's called ICAO Level 4. It's a English assessment. But how they recruit trainee pilots in Taiwan is they look at what's called your IELTS. It's like a foreign English score. And even though on the ad they say they require something like 750 as the minimum, you're not very likely to be called to interview unless you score like 950 or above, which is like near perfect score.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Frankly, as a native speaker, I'm not sure I can score 950 just from the test format.
I don't know about that. I actually want to take IELTS, and the other one's TOEFL. IELTS is for British English, by the way, or Commonwealth countries, and TOEFL is mainly American based. I think it is American, but I know it's because I had to teach like TOEFL like a few times, but privately. But I actually want to take TOEFL or IELTS just to see like, okay, man, I'm a native speaker, I should know this. But I don't know.
I wonder.
You can be slaughtered.
Yeah,
I wonder what their reaction would be if I decided to take the TOEFL.
I remember I met this guy who took the
TOEFL
exam.
Sorry, Poochie, you were going?
Oh no, I was just going to say, I remember I met this guy who took the TOEFL exam, and then he knew I was a native speaker, and he was like, Poochie, you have give me a 5-minute discussion on shoes, and I was like, shoes? I guess you can wear them. They help you run, and they come in different colors and brands: Nike, Adidas, Puma, and I'm stuck. And he said, "Yeah, you wouldn't score well in the TOEFL exam." I was like, damn it.
Wow.
Wow. That's really rough.
It's like a 5-minute discussion on shoes. That's what he got, and then he had to make something up on the spot. I'm like, mad respect.
That is so rough. Like,
I know. Yeah.
That is your like not even just English. Like, it's your ability to like orally present something, and that's like native English speakers struggle a lot with that as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I could not find 5 minutes worth of material for shoes unless I was actually prepared to talk about them. Like, and then even then, I'd probably try to do it like formal essay style. Like, shoes are a great commodity to any person living in any region of the world. They were first invented in such and such year.
My God. So formal. You just have like that speech prepared and you're just playing it out.
I kind of have like a little bit more like shorter, maybe like funnier questions for us. I know we've been dealing with a lot of tough topics, and thank you everyone for being honest and sincere about your experiences. This first question is again just kind of rapid fire. Don't need to go too long on it. Do you ever feel homesick for the food of the country that you quote unquote are from? And it could be like it could be, again, the obvious example is like if you're Taiwanese American, do you like or miss Taiwanese food? But let's go with Kaiyoki first. Like, do you ever miss like Singaporean food?
Do you ever miss laksa?
Oh yeah. So the Singaporean dishes, the ones that are really, really, really common, you can kind of get them with some effort in Australia now. But man, do I miss the fucking variety of shit you can get in Singapore. And like just you go down and this is one porridge which this one family has done for the last 100 fucking years. Sorry. I'm really like I get excited as well.
Rosie, you can swear.
It's like this $2 bowl of congee, right? And it's got these fried small intestines that are done a specific way, like the scallion oil is done a specific way. That kind of stuff does not fucking exist here. And that's the part I miss. Right? Having like this like tiny window that a family has chosen to share with you. You know, like this is a family recipe and you are eating it. And I like, no matter where I go, generally speaking, I can find that in Singapore, and it's really hard to find that in Australia because it's a lot to do with how the hawker stuff came about, and I won't really go too much into it. It's a fairly interesting story, but it's not as supported in Australia. You know, it's very much like professional restaurants or GTFO. You know, so I'm eternally homesick for that. Eternally. Anyway, so that's my answer to that question.
How about Poochie?
I can give you two sides. So when I left Australia and moved to China, I bloody missed a good meat pie, sausage roll,
meat pie.
and fish and chips. And surprisingly enough, and I'm going to get crucified for this, but I miss Chinese Australian food. You know, like
Disgusting.
stir fry. It's
Disgusting.
like
Oh
all the
my god!
ingredients, bloody send
Stop
it.
keeping those restaurants alive.
Yeah, like it's like yeah, I knew you guys were going to kill me for this, but yeah, I actually miss.
Look at that guy.
Actually, miss the fake Australia, the fake Australian Chinese food. And
there's a flavor.
There is. It's something I grew up with. It basically appeases both my Western and my Eastern taste buds. So it's like it speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like what you know the meme which there are two wolves inside you. Yeah. It appeases my two wolves. So there's that. Now when it comes to living in Australia, it's been 2 years since I visited my family in Taiwan, and I can tell you right now, I could go smash an odds in from a night market, like or go eat some deep fried fish balls. So yeah, the homesick cravings are bloody real.
I'm gonna read some questions. Some responses from the audience about this question. So Gonto says I lived in Richmond, BC. It is Vancouver. First time I saw that word. Thank you. So finding a dim sum restaurant or a cha cha ting is not an issue, and the food is on par, if not better, in Hong Kong. And then Holu says, "Oh, absolutely. I spent a good 3 months in China for my final year of university for my dissertation, building a house, and I was ravenous when I got back home. Yeah, I can. Yeah." That's interesting. I didn't know that. That the cuisines would be kind of similar. This is Husjin, also from Singapore. Was never abroad, but went to China for a week. I miss Singapore's McDonald's McSpicy.
Yes.
McSpicy. Okay.
Yes, the McLaofai.
Yeah.
The way it makes you shit your guts out. Like it is there's only the Singaporean version that does that. It's so weird that I missed that.
Hey Shabaka, just a general comment. You know, when my family left Australia, my parents told me they miss laksa, but not from like Singapore, Malaysia, but from this food court in Chinatown in Sydney.
It's really interesting because laksa is such a personal thing, and like each individual family has their own tiny variations. And that's what I meant by like, especially places in like Sydney, where you can get the ingredients, and I think someone else has made a comment about that a bit further up in Kaverick about the ingredient availability. If you have those ingredients and you're able to recreate that amazing like one little recipe, God, like it gets its hooks into you, and you just can't forget that one dish, that one version of that dish. Anyway,
that's it.
Yeah.
How about Sakura Inu? Do you miss Taiwanese food?
Yeah, so much.
do you miss do you miss sticky tofu? Do you miss sticky tofu?
Yeah.
No, he said yeah. He said yeah.
We don't have it here. We don't have it here. Like
that's hard to.
Really rarely have it, right? And like it's kind of easier to find any Taiwanese food in Bay Area or I guess in the East Coast, but not in Texas. They're still pretty new to like Taiwanese food. So, but there's still some like we know like some food truck around Austin area. They have two Taiwanese restaurant. One is just closed. They closed. Yeah, one Taiwanese restaurant just closed, and one remained. That one is pretty good, pretty busy. They have a great Taiwanese beef noodle soup.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a very few thing I can have here in Texas to have a Taiwanese food. So.
I know there's a Taiwanese restaurant in Plano. I guess you've been there. It's like Taiwan Cafe, I think. I think you know it.
Oh, yeah, Taiwan Cafe.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like it? Do you like Taiwan Cafe?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and they pay only in cash. Isn't that right? They only pay in cash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
yeah.
I don't know why.
That's very Taiwanese.
Yeah.
I would
I
say.
think to avoid
Yeah.
taxes, right? Don't they avoid like
Oh.
taxes or something like that? Like I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to those guys
Now-
though. Yeah, give them a rating.
Yeah. Now, since Poochie brought it up, now Ray and Sakura, do you actually have an opinion on the Asian fusion, quote unquote, fake Chinese food we have in America?
Oh, the first year I came to the US, I hated a lot. It's like even Chinese food at all, it's not considered as like a Asian food at all. It's just an American fantasy food.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
actually, if you think in the other way, like if you consider it as like Asian aspire
Mhm.
American food, and then you just clean up your minds, assuming it's Asian food. Actually, it's not too bad. Like for some, it depends on the location. Some Panda Express is good, and some is like awful,
Yeah.
like the trash. But
Mhm.
some are good. Don't think of it as Asian food. It would be good.
I will say that I agree, and I extended an apology to Poochie because in my mind it's been kind of like rolling over to my head, and I actually miss some like Asian Western food. I do actually miss that a little bit, and yeah, okay, I can see that, especially growing up with it. So, God, I still hate the ones here because they stink real bad. But like, if they find a nice version of it, like I can see the merit in it. Yeah.
I think Ray
And-
was going to answer. Then I'll answer the question.
Oh, man. Yeah, I really miss the food. The funny thing is, when I was in Taiwan, I missed the food in the U.S., and then when I'm here, I miss the food in Taiwan.
Yeah. I can see
Really
that.
stuck
You
in the
can't
middle.
really have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, you have to
Like,
learn how to
when
cook.
you're
But yeah.
Yeah, like when you're in Taiwan, like the food that you have there, is kind of you have a lot of varieties in the food, but it's like all the food that you wouldn't get in the U.S. And
Yeah.
then when you're in the U.S., you have a lot of variety of food, but it's all the food that you don't have in Taiwan. Like in Taiwan, you have a lot of different like varieties
Yeah.
of like tropical fruits. There's a lot of like Asian vegetables, like acai. What else is it?
Bok choy?
Yeah, like all sorts of different stuff that you would find really common in Taiwan, and I guess you could find them in the U.S. If you go to Ranch 99 or something, but it's a lot less common.
Yeah. I love
Um,
Ranch 99.
I will say that a lot of the ingredients in Taiwan seem to be like pretty different, even if you're buying essentially the same thing as the U.S. Like the cheese is not at all the same as cheese in the U.S.
yeah.
The meat, I feel like, well, I mean, it's still importing U.S. beef, so it's beef at least is pretty similar.
It's
but like the
different
cuts of
cuts
meat,
though. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely different.
yeah, and if you get like any kind of Western food in Taiwan, it's going to be vastly different from what the more authentic Western food is. Like spaghetti, pizza, hamburgers, steaks, like all those kinds of stuff is going to be like kind of surprisingly wildly different than the U.S. Like I still distinctly remember school lunches in Taiwan where the pizza was like it had peas, carrots, and corn as topping.
I've had
And I
that.
was
I've had
like,
that before.
No.
why? No.
微饭自然. Like I can't do that.
Like,
I had it,
just
but I
give me a
can't do it.
cheese pizza. Just cheese. That's
Yeah,
it. No, not
cheese.
this. But yeah, in the U.S., lucky to be in the Bay Area, so there's quite a lot of Asian food. I personally, I don't know if it's because I'm not in Taiwan, so it doesn't seem the same, but it just for some reason it seems to not be, it doesn't seem to be the same as in Taiwan, even though there's restaurants that are like specifically catering to food that you can't at all like find here. Like there's actually a restaurant that opened called Siling Street Snacks, inspired by Siling, yes, night market. And they specifically sell think they even had stinky tofu, but they also have oamiswa, like the oyster vermicelli soup, which I really like, and they have a few other like street foods, but for some reason it just doesn't seem like 100% there. It's like almost the same, but not quite the same for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a huge Taiwanese American community here, so there's a lot of stuff that that you could get. There's actually a Mayor May, like a breakfast place in Taiwan.
What? No way.
Yeah, that opened here on east side of the Bay Area, and there's also quite a lot of 85Cs. So you could get a decent number of the stuff. You just kind of had to go out of your way to go to these places.
I heard that Mayor May in the US are quite different from the Mayor May in Taiwan, right?
Oh, really?
Did you try that? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually go to Mayor May when I was in Taiwan, but the food seemed pretty. It seemed really similar to food I used to eat. Like it's stuff like not cheese damping. I guess just regular damping.
Macho, before you give your answer, I hope you don't mind me hijacking this conversation, but
Go ahead.
I feel like Sakura and Rating brought out a very interesting topic. So it's blasphemous to call it Chinese food. It's blasphemous to call it American food. And I feel like that's a pretty hot topic these days, the whole concept of cultural appropriation, where it's like if you want to create a representation of your interpretation of foreign cuisine, as in you have, are you doing it justice? And it can be a bit of a difficult conversation because you could actually fall into racism. Like I remember my friend who went to America and then she went to a Chinese food festival where she was served deep fried dumplings and then she was absolutely offended. So I just felt like Sakura and Ray have brought up a bit of a interesting topic about when foreign representation of a culture that you're not originally from could be deemed as offensive to food.
Oh, absolutely.
Deep fried dumplings. Are you sure she didn't go to like a state fair?
I think she went to it was like a college event, and then it was like a Asian Appreciation Day, and then when she saw the deep fried dumplings, she wanted to cry.
They're crunchy. It's like if you have what's the thing? Gyoza, but it's all over, right?
Oh, like tempura gyoza, I guess.
It does like cut up the inside of your mouth quite a bit. Crunchy.
So interesting topic. I won't go too much on it. These things are sometimes we take liberties with food. Sometimes it's for the sake of fusion. Sometimes the chef doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know, but it will definitely happen.
I think
Sorry, making me hungry right now. I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Oh yeah.
I haven't shown you all this.
I have a
my dessert.
Oh, you have a.
It's literally like a D20 with all the numbers and stuff on it.
Is it a D20? Oh.
Yeah, it's a D20. I don't want to hold it up because it's like literally melting in my fingers.
Oh.
But that's my dessert for when we come off stream.
Yeah, I'll drink some Brusco for post stream shit. But my response is gonna be 3 parts, and we're gonna elongate the stream just a little bit, guys. So if you can hang on for maybe 10 more minutes, then we'll wrap up. So again, I'm Lao American, so I'm familiar with Lao food / Thai food, and I'm familiar with American food, general American food. So in Taiwan, I missed a lot of Western food. I'm definitely a Westerner through and through. I miss burgers. I miss hot dogs. I miss the way they are in the States. Hello. Yeah. Sometimes I miss getting burritos like from Walmart, and you just warm it up. I miss like hot pockets, which you can probably still get in Taiwan, I think. Sorry, man. I miss these things. I miss all the unhealthy stuff. And I know it's not good for you, but I miss them. And then in America, did I miss Taiwanese food? Not so much. But I do miss how like relatively cheap it was. because I'm Asian American, but my parents, they don't cook very well, and also they make a lot of Asian food, so I'm kind of sick of it. So if I can eat spaghetti, I'm like, yes, thank you for making spaghetti. I don't want to eat like tamahong, which is basically you guys would probably know it as som tam in Thai, which is papaya salad. Um, there's things like krapao. Actually, krapao is more like Thai food, so my parents didn't really make that, but like. That kind of stuff I kind of sort of grew up on. So when I went to Taiwan, like to try to find the equivalent, it was actually very hard. It was very hard to try to find Lao or Thai food that matched what my parents or my grandma made. Did I have a craving for Lao food? Not really, but it did taste like home. I had Thai food like a couple times last week. Made me feel like I was at home.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah, it made me feel like home, and it was pretty authentic. And I think like one of the restaurants was actually like they had a lot of like Thai people working there, so they probably like they tried to do their best to recreate what was quote unquote original, to what they would make. But yeah, like I definitely feel like I missed a lot of American food though. Like that's really like the point of what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
It's interesting that you brought that up. Basically, last year, I was talking more regularly with this college student. Basically, they were either a graduate or master's student, based around in Taipei, but visiting me in Zhongli. And he was originally from Thailand, could still speak Thai natively, but could also speak English pretty well and Chinese very well.
About him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guy. And I took him to one of the Thai restaurants. Well, that was in Zhongli. It got replaced by some other kind of restaurant. Rest in peace. But even though he said like, the food's kind of mediocre, the flavors and the ingredients that they use in the food taste like home, according to him. Yeah. But then later he actually showed me a different Thai kind of a food place. It was more like group meal barbecue kind of a thing. So that was interesting. But yeah, just the way you've described the like stuff that tastes like home, that's what that reminded me of.
Yeah, I again, like I feel like finding Lao or Thai food in Taiwan is a bit hard. And finding good ones are even harder. But it's possible, it's possible to find them. That's not really the food that I crave for though. Like I just crave like, fatty American food. So yeah. Sorry, I'm definitely an American, but I mean that's why I always tell people. But we really just have like one last question here. Sorry, it's raining really hard in Taipei right now.
It's raining here pretty hard in Taoyuan too.
The last question here, and again, you guys can be as brief as you want about this. Like where do you see yourself in like, let's say about 5 years? Like where do you want to move? Do you want to stay where you live or what? Let's go with Kaiyoki.
I'll say that in 5 years, definitely still here. I've got a good network. I really understand the local system, and like, oh my god, like healthcare systems are so complicated. It's really hard to transplant yourself from one into another one. So just kind of because of that, I will still be here in 5 years, 100%. 10 years, we'll see. I joked a little bit about Canada like a while ago, but a little bit of me like wasn't joking so much. So we'll see. I still like love it here, but like it would be easier for me to go to a different healthcare system because the Australian one does not treat its healthcare workers very well.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
It's like I'm used to the system, and so it's easy for me to work in it. But long term, if I can do better for myself, I might. Maybe we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that I didn't decide to like go back to Singapore. Like in my mind, far few decades ahead, I have like a little fantasy where I'll go back to Singapore. I'll open a small clinic. I'll work for minimal fees. But honestly, like I kind of really want to do a lot for mental health in Singapore, but I'm not at the point where I can run my own clinic. and not run my own clinic at like what's basically a loss. Because
Yeah.
shit's expensive, yo. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
That's my short answer for that.
Thank you. Let's go with Poochie.
It's a really tricky question because 5 years from now, well, I'd say I'd probably still be in Australia, just simply because, like I said before, I like the stability of not having to worry about your status to remain. But where in Australia, I don't know if I'll still be in Melbourne, probably, but it's also difficult to say because in the past 2 years, like I've had spur of the moment decisions to move somewhere. So at the top of my head, I ended up moving from Sydney to Hobart, Tasmania, and then spent a year there. And then basically things didn't turn the way I had planned, so I then moved to Brisbane, and then spent some time there. Did some schooling, some training. And when I got my qualification, I heard jobs were best found in Darwin, so off I went. And then I realized in Darwin that the climate was just not for me. It's quite an interesting place, let's say. Those who've been to Darwin will understand what I'm talking about. So I moved to Adelaide, where I enrolled for further training. Then midway through, I received a job offer to move to Sydney, and for Sydney initially with permanent basing in Melbourne. So that's what ended up happening. And as you can see, I've got a very dynamic life, and things can change at the drop of my hat. So
why not Cairns? Why not? Why don't you live in Cairns?
Nobody wants to live in Cairns. Nobody wants to live in Cairns if they can help it. No offense to people who live in Cairns, but
yeah, I've never been to Cairns. No, but I was just going to say, like, I've never lived in Cairns, but then just given how crazy like my life is, you never know. It could happen when I least expect it. So who knows?
All right.
Can I just say that you've been extended an invite from Pillcat down in chat over there to come to Perth.
Take me, please.
Our rental and housing market's trash, but if you want to come, you'll be welcome.
Thank you. How is Sakura Inu? Where do you want to be? Where will you go in 5 years?
Like foreign student in the US, they have like for STM student, we have like 3 years OPT, so we can work legally in the US at least for 3 years. So I'm not probably using the opportunity after graduating and try to find a job here. At least my resume have a better like at least, right? So, but afterward it depends. Like I'm not probably go back to Taiwan. We're living here. It have advantage and disadvantage, right? If I stay here for working, there would be more like a salary, better pay, and like employee better, especially in the tech company. So I'm not going to stay here. But consider about the family or friends in Taiwan is another story. So it's still like I still having the struggling in the between of whether I should go back to Taiwan after the, but it's still like at least 4 years or 5 years later story, so I can decide it after. Yeah.
Do you I do want to ask a quick follow-up question. Do you ever want to get your citizenship like Kofu?
If I want to, or if I decided to keep working, I'm not forget it. Yeah. Depends on the tech company. If I go to a like a Texas Instrument TI or like to the big tech company, they were offering that.
Oh.
So yeah,
nice.
They might probably offering that.
My aunt works for TI. If you want to get a job, I'll talk to her. I'm not kidding. My aunt works for TI. Like All right. All right. Thank you. And then Ray.
Honestly, hard for me to say, but realistically, probably staying here and I mean, like probably in the same place in 5 years. I've realized there's a lot of things that I've learned about how things work, and like assumptions that I just take for granted. And when I move elsewhere, there's going to be a lot of differences, especially if I
Yeah.
move like overseas, like
Right.
just with how different laws are, different like social norms, and like how different systems work. Like I was relearning on Twitter just how confusing the financial system in Taiwan is, and like how bureaucratic it is. Like apparently, like there's a lot of expats who go over to Taiwan, and then they're like, "Wow, the banking system is really complicated, and like
Right.
a small problem could take like a whole day to fix, and then you get confusing instructions that really just depends on like who's the branch manager for the day." So, I don't know. It's kind of a daunting idea to move overseas. I might end up doing it, but realistically, I don't know. Maybe not. I'll see.
We'll keep an eye out. Yeah. I mean, it's an exciting time. It's also a very dangerous time to be moving around because of COVID. But it's definitely like when things get better and travel becomes more possible. Maybe we'll see that being a possibility for you and for other people. I guess I'll answer this question, and then we'll wrap up. We'll do the social media shout out. I do plan on staying in Taiwan for next 3 to 4 years. After that, I'm not sure what will happen. At that point, if I really want to stay in Taiwan and work for 3 to 4 consecutive years, I think it's 3 years consecutive. It's either 3 or 5 years that you can get a PR, but I think it's like the permanent residence. It's not just the standard ARC. It's like the APRC. It's either 3 or 5 years. Maybe Sakura can correct me, but if you really want to stay in Taiwan, then you might as well aim for that. Like you shouldn't just want to live in Taiwan for 1 or 2 years. Like if you're there for the long term, you might as well, you go for that goal. You would go for that goal. You would have to think a little bit more long term than short term. So I think I'll probably be here in Taiwan for the next like 3 to 4 years. 5 years, that's kind of hard to say. And then things may or may not change if I like political situation, work situation, finding a partner. So those things are all in my consideration as well. All right. I do want to thank the audience one last time for being here with us. Yeah, Moore just joined. Moore like woke up or something like that. Moore has a sinus infection, so rest well, man. We were talking about like food, and I'm pretty sure Moore would have loved that. But no, for everyone in the chat, I'll go ahead and read out everyone's names just like last time. We've got Alice Neck. We've got Bacon Yuen. Funny name. We have Bali. Wow, Bali from the Aina chat. Bunny Bee, Commander Root, Cookie Doggo from Germany. Thank you. Gantos, thank you so much again. Our resident Hong Kong fur. Holud, Hosforce, Jody Moon, Joe also from Hong Kong. June, one of my students from Japan. We got Caxipus, Guang. Again, I think he's like one of the organizers for like Tea Party, right? Tea Party, I think. Is our Tea Party for a bit. So thank you, Guang, for being here. Lur, More Gears again. Nerix from Singapore. Osmond from living in Japan, I should say. Rain, Malaysia represents. Pilcat, Australia. Sezakai, Indonesia. We got Skrill as well. Thank you, Skrill, for being here. Spike Trap Claire, Tiz Cloud, Tom Leo. I think Tom Leo is Taiwanese. And we have Decro, one of the staff members for LAFC. So thank you so much, man, for coming here. I'll see you later, LAFC. Virgo Pros, Wolfie. I think I've seen Wolfie for Lico's stream, so thank you, man. And then we got Zonorth from Singapore. So thank you guys so much for being here. Well, let's do a final social media shout out. So just basically say the social media you want people to follow you, and we'll go with Kaiyoki first.
I'm pretty much Kaiyoki anywhere that it's relevant. I mostly use Facebook and Twitter. Although, like, if you kind of want to reach me, I'm Shibaka on Discord, and it's not really relevant. Or Telegram, so Shibaka.
And Poochie, I think Poochie, you said you prefer to not show your social media. Is that right?
Well, you can reach out to me on Telegram. That's at Airbus sorry, at Airbus Pupboy AIRBUSPUPBOY. You can also add me on Facebook. And that's Liaojay LIAOJAY space Poochison POOCHINNSON.
Gotcha. Thank you, man. Sakura Inu. Can you wolf?
Hey, I'm Sakura Inu. So if you want to follow me, all my account is Sakura Inu.
Yep.
Yes.
Sakura
Twitter,
Inu
Facebook.
fur.
You already have all this shit ready.
Yes.
There- Michael just put your your Twitter in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and rating.
Yeah, so I am predominantly on Twitter. So at Rayting TW, RAYTING TW.
What's
I'm also
TW for?
on Taiwan.
Hey. Town number one. Hey.
Yeah, at least it's not Rating CN.
Shots fired.
Maybe there's a alter ego or evil twin somewhere. I don't know.
Evil
Right,
twin.
People twin rating.
But yeah,
I love that.
I'm
Rating
also.
CN.
But yeah, I'm also on Telegram at Rating. That username wasn't taken on Telegram, so I just
Ooh.
I managed to snag it. It wasn't available on Twitter.
Nice.
Though.
I love that. I love that. They snagged
Ooh.
Matcha Fox. Like I think there's like a website in Singapore that sells like tea called Matcha Fox. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
that makes sense.
I'm gonna go to battle. Like, I need to take that name. I want that name.
You're gonna lose.
Um,
I'm not a lawyer, but I'll give you this advice for fucking free.
oh my gosh. I should have acted sooner. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for the audience. We're sitting at 30 viewers right now, and that's consistent. We've been consistently getting 30 something viewers, and that was more than our February stream.
Endured.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, yeah, thank
People have
you.
endured. Holy shit.
You guys have been here rambling. You guys have like
2.5
listened to us
hours.
rambling for about like 2 hours about Asia. Can we actually drink now? Oh my gosh. we'll drink some. We'll move this chat to somewhere else. But no, we can.
Is
we
the
can talk
LIFC
about-
one 18 plus?
Say again.
Is the LIFC one going to be 18 plus?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll be back at LAFC hosting the Drunken Vulpines panel. And then also we have some very exciting news. I don't think Cheers is here, but for the first time ever, foxenburger have been invited as guest of honors for Pawai Online this year. I believe that's in July. So again, if you're Indonesian, you will be on Pawai. I think it's Pawai on air. I think that's what they're calling it. So again, I know Cheers is not here, but many thanks to Cheers. We're very honored. I think we're also along with Pepper Coyote that like we're also guest GOHing with him. So I know Moore is here, so awesome to see you guys. What else? Oh, and I guess for our Twitter it's just Foxenburger at Foxenburger, and then you guys know the Twitch link already. So
On the Twitch, right there.
yeah. And I changed the time on the little lower third on the right. I think it's every 1 minute it'll actually change instead of every 5 minutes. So if you see it flipping back and forth, then yeah, I made it to go faster. So yeah, all right, guys. That's basically it. We'll probably take this conversation somewhere else. We appreciate everybody. Let's do the bye very wish everybody a good
Sakura
night.
Inu, we have the same microphone.
Yeah.
Holy shit. The two Shiba Inu.
Bye, guys.
Exact same microphone.
Ending stream.